We have a first alert out of Spartanburg County, where a judge denied bond for a man accused of killing a woman in front of her young son. 19-year-old Javion Rice is charged with murder in the death of 21-year-old Sky Logan. He appeared before a judge this afternoon, where a prosecutor from the solicitor's office revealed new details about the case, saying the victim's toddler saw his mother die.
The victim is 21-year-old Sky Logan. Her 2-year-old little boy was sitting on the couch after the shooting, calling his mother's name. He doesn't know yet. He's never going to see her again. She was shot one time in the neck and the chest area.
February 3rd, 2026, 9 p.m. A frantic 911 call comes in from Inman, South Carolina. A woman reports an accidental shooting at her son's home. But when police arrive at the house on Farm Creek Road, they find something completely different. A 21-year-old woman is lying on the front porch, bleeding from a gunshot wound to her chest. She's barely alive. Inside the house, her 3-year-old son sits alone on the couch, calling out for his mommy over and over again. He doesn't understand that she's dying just feet away from him. The boyfriend claims it was an accident. He says the gun just went off while he was holding it. A terrible mistake, nothing more. But the evidence tells a different story. The blood patterns don't match. The bullet angle is wrong. And then investigators find something that changes everything. Video footage of the shooting itself. What really happened in that house? Why did a 19-year-old shoot his girlfriend while her toddler watched? And what did that video reveal? This is the story of Sky Logan and the night her boyfriend destroyed everything. Welcome to this channel. But before we get into what happened that night, I want to hear from you. Have you ever heard of a case like this in your area? What state or country are you watching from? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a case that matters. Now let's talk about who Sky Logan really was. Sky Anastasia Logan was just 21 years old when she died. She wasn't famous. She wasn't a celebrity. Honey, she was an everyday young woman trying to build a life in a small South Carolina town. Her name, Sky Anastasia, was unique and beautiful. It spoke to a family that wanted something special for their daughter. A name that would stand out. A name that would be remembered. Sky lived in Inman, a tiny town in Spartanburg County with fewer than 3,000 people. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where neighbors wave to each other, where kids play outside and families gather at local restaurants on Friday nights. It's quiet, it's peaceful, it's home. But Sky's most important role wasn't as a resident of Inman. It was as a mother. She had a 3-year-old son who was her whole world. Anyone who's been a parent knows how hard it is. But being a young mother at 21 comes with extra challenges. You're still figuring out your own life while raising another human being. You're making sacrifices every single day. You're putting your child's needs before your own. Sky Y was doing exactly that. She was working hard to give her son a good life. She was making sure he had food on the table, clothes on his back, and a roof over his head. She was teaching him his ABCs. She was reading him bedtime stories. She was being the best mom she could be. Like most young mothers, Sky probably had dreams for her future. Maybe she wanted to go back to school. Maybe she wanted a better job. Maybe she just wanted to watch her son grow up, graduate high school, and have kids of his own someday. She had her whole life ahead of her. Decades of birthdays and holidays. Decades of watching her son grow. Decades of making memories with the people she loved. But all of those dreams, all of those possibilities, all of that future, it would all be stolen from her in a single moment of violence. On February 3rd, 2026, everything Sky was building came crashing down. And the person responsible was someone she trusted, someone she loved, someone who was supposed to protect her, her boyfriend. His name was Javion Rice. He was only 19 years old, 2 years younger than Sky. Javion and Sky I were in a relationship. They lived together in a home on Farm Creek Road in Inman. It was the same house where Sky I would eventually take her last breath. Javion was part of Sky I's son's life too. We don't know if he was the biological father, but he was there. He lived with them. He was a parental figure to that little 3-year-old boy. The child knew him, trusted him, probably even looked up to him. One from the outside, they might have looked like a normal young couple. Two people trying to make it work, raising a kid together, sharing a home, building something that looked like a family. But behind closed doors, things were different. Like many relationships, Sky and Javion had their problems. They argued, they fought, and those fights weren't always small disagreements about dishes or bills. These were the kind of arguments that got heated, the kind that escalated, the kind that left emotional scars even before any physical violence happened. We don't know all the details of their relationship. We don't know how long they'd been together or how bad things had gotten before that night. But we do know this: when there's conflict in a relationship, when there's anger and tension building up over time, it can explode in ways no one expects. And in this case, there was another factor that made everything more dangerous. Javion had access to a gun. When you mix relationship problems with firearms, the risk of someone getting killed goes up by 500%. That's not an exaggeration. That's a fact. Guns turn arguments into tragedies. They turn bad nights into fatal ones. There's one more person we need to talk about in this story: Javion's mother. She was somehow involved that night. In fact, she was the one who called 911 after the shooting. She reported it as an accident. Whether she was at the house when it happened or arrived right after, we don't know for sure. But her call to police would set everything in motion. Looking back now, there were probably warning signs. Signs that Sky's friends or family might have noticed. Signs that things weren't okay. But sometimes those signs are easy to miss. Or maybe people saw them but didn't know what to do. Whatever the case, on the evening of February 3rd, 2026, all those hidden tensions came to the surface, and they exploded into violence that would leave a young mother dead and a little boy without the person he loved most in the world. Before we get into what happened that night, I want to pause and ask you something. What do you think really happened here? Was this a crime of passion, a fight that went too far, or was there something else going on? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you're finding this case as important as I am, hit that like button. It helps more people discover these stories. Now let's talk about the night everything changed. February 3rd, 2026, 9 p.m. The phone rings at the Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office. It's Javion Rice's mother on the line. She's calling from the house on Farm Creek Road. She tells the dispatcher there's been an accidental shooting. A gun went off. Someone is hurt. They need help right away. The call goes out to deputies. Accidental shooting, Farm Creek Road, Inman. They rush to the scene, expecting to find exactly what was reported, a tragic accident. But that's not what they find at all. When deputies pull up to the house, they see her immediately. Sky Logan is lying on the front porch. She's been shot in the chest and neck area. Blood is everywhere. She's still alive, but barely. Her breathing is shallow. She's fading fast. Paramedics arrive within minutes. They load Sky into the ambulance and rush her to Spartanburg Regional Medical Center. The doctors and nurses do everything they can to save her life. They work on her for hours, but the damage is too severe. The bullet tore through vital areas. There's too much blood loss, too much trauma. At 11:47 p.m., just before midnight, Sky Ernestasha Logan is pronounced dead. She was 21 years old. Her son was only 3. And that little boy had no idea his mother was never coming home. While paramedics were trying to save Sky Eye's life outside, deputies went into the house to investigate. That's when they found him. Sky Eye's 3-year-old son was sitting on the couch, alone, confused, scared, and he was calling for his mommy. Over and over again, he said her name. He didn't understand why she wasn't answering. He didn't know she was dying just outside the door. He didn't know that his entire world had just been destroyed. Later in court, Assistant Solicitor Anthony Labert would describe this moment to the judge. His words were heartbreaking. Her 3-year-old little boy was sitting on a couch after the shooting, calling his mother's name. He doesn't know yet. He's never going to see her again. Think about that for a moment. A toddler, sitting alone, calling for his mom, not knowing she's gone forever. That little boy will carry this trauma for the rest of his life. He witnessed his mother's murder. He heard the gunshot. He saw the chaos. And even though he's too young to fully understand what happened, his brain recorded it all. He'll grow up without a mother. He'll have questions no one can answer. He'll wonder why this happened, why someone took her away from him, and he'll never get her back. While deputies were processing the scene, Javion Rice told them his version of events. He said it was an accident. He claimed he was handling a firearm inside the house when it suddenly went off. He didn't mean to shoot Sky Y. It just happened. A terrible, tragic mistake. At first, that's what investigators thought too. Accidental shootings happen. Guns are dangerous. People make mistakes. But as they started looking closer at the evidence, things didn't add up. The blood patterns were wrong. If the gun had accidentally discharged while Rice was just holding it, the blood would have been in a different location. The angle of the bullet didn't match his story either. And then deputies learned something crucial. Javion Rice and Sky Logan were in a relationship. They lived together. And on the night of the shooting, they were fighting. This wasn't an accident. This was a domestic dispute that turned deadly. Investigators kept digging. They collected physical evidence from the scene. They interviewed witnesses. They looked at everything. And then they found something that changed the entire case. The shooting had been caught on video. Whether it was a doorbell camera, a security camera, or something else, we don't know. But there was footage. And that footage showed exactly what happened. In court, Assistant Solicitor Anthony Liebert described what the video revealed. On the video, there's blood exploding out of her body before she collapses and dies. There was no accident. There was no mistake. The video showed the truth. Javion Rice shot Sky Y Logan, and she died right there on that porch. On February 4th, in 2026, just one day after Sky's death, Javion Nyrek Rice appeared in court for his bond hearing. He was charged with 2 crimes, murder and possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. The judge explained what these charges meant. If Rice is convicted of murder, he could face life in prison without the possibility of parole. That means he would never get out. He would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The weapons charge carries a sentence of up to 5 years. But if he gets life without parole for the murder, that weapons charge won't matter anymore. Assistant Solicitor Anthony Liebert stood before the judge and laid out the facts of the case. He didn't hold back. He made sure everyone in that courtroom understood exactly what happened and who the real victim was. The victim is 21-year-old Sky Logan, Liebert said. Her 3-year-old little boy was sitting on a couch after the shooting, calling his mother's name. He doesn't know yet. He's never going to see her again. She was shot 1 time in the neck and the chest area. Then Liebert described the video evidence, the footage that showed Sky Y's final moments. On the video, there's blood exploding out of her body before she collapses and dies. The courtroom was silent. After hearing all of this, the judge made his decision. Javion Rice would not be getting out on bond. He would stay locked up in the Spartanburg County Detention Facility until his trial. Rice's next court appearance is scheduled for April 16, 2026. That's when the legal process will continue. That's when prosecutors will build their case, and Rice's defense team will try to fight the charges. But no matter what happens in that courtroom, one thing will never change. Sky Y Logan is gone. Her son will grow up without a mother, and a 19-year-old's decision to pull a trigger destroyed multiple lives in a single moment. Justice is beginning, but for Sky's family, no amount of justice will ever bring her back. Sky Y Logan's death isn't just one tragic story. It's part of a much bigger problem that affects thousands of people every year. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, more than half of all women who are murdered are killed by their intimate partners. That means boyfriends, husbands, or ex-partners. And when there's a gun in the home during a domestic violence situation, the risk of someone being killed goes up by 500%. 5 times more likely. That's how dangerous guns are when mixed with relationship violence. Sky Y's story could have been prevented. And there are things we can all do to make sure tragedies like this don't keep happening. The first step is knowing the warning signs of domestic violence before it's too late. If you or someone you know is in a relationship where there's frequent arguing, controlling behavior, extreme jealousy, threats, or any kind of physical violence, those are red flags. Don't ignore them. Domestic violence doesn't always start with hitting. It starts with control. It starts with isolation. It starts with words that tear someone down. If you're in danger, please reach out for help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day. 7 days a week. You can call 1-800-799-7233. You can also text START to 88788. Trained advocates will help you create a safety plan and connect you with resources in your area. You don't have to go through this alone. If you own a gun, you have a responsibility to store it safely, especially if there's any conflict in your home. Never handle a firearm when you're angry or emotional. Never use a gun to threaten or intimidate someone during an argument. Guns should always be stored unloaded and locked away. Keep the ammunition separate. Use a gun safe or a trigger lock. Make sure no one can access it during a heated moment. And if you're in a relationship where there's violence or serious conflict, remove the guns from your home completely. It could save a life. Skywise's 3-year-old son witnessed his mother's murder. That kind of trauma doesn't just go away. Children who witness violence are at higher risk for anxiety, depression, behavioral problems, and even becoming victims or perpetrators of violence later in life. If you know a child who has seen or experienced violence, make sure they get help. Trauma-informed therapy can make a huge difference. There are counselors who specialize in helping kids process what they've been through. Don't assume they're too young to remember. Their brains are recording everything. Finally, we all have a role to play in stopping domestic violence. Support your local domestic violence shelters and programs. They provide safe housing, counseling, legal help, and so much more for survivors. Learn how to safely report domestic violence if you see or hear it happening. Don't ignore it. Together, we can prevent the next tragedy. This guy's story is a reminder that domestic violence can happen anywhere, to anyone. If this case affected you, please share this video. It could save someone's life. What do you think should happen to Javion Rice? Should he face life in prison without parole? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on this case as it goes to trial, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. I'll be following this story and bringing you updates. Thank you for watching, and please remember, if you or someone you know needs help, reach out. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone.